Welcome to This Week in Local, a Localogy podcast featuring lively conversations about the local digital ecosystem, hosted by Localogy analysts Mike Boland and Charles Laughlin.
Hello, and welcome to This Week in Local. I'm Charles Laughlin, senior analyst at Localogy, joined by Mike Boland. Mike, how's it going?
Hey, Charlie. Going well.
So, Mike, tell us what you're working on.
Yeah, so I had an interesting call the other day with Florian Hübner, who many of our audience knows as the co-founder and now former CEO of Uberall. And the sort of now former part is why I had this discussion with him. So some of our audience may be aware that he has stepped down from the CEO position, taking the role of president. Uberall has brought in or is bringing in an outside CEO by the name of Anthony Foy, who comes from Curado and Workshare and a few other SaaS companies. He's someone that's sort of a career CEO that's sort of, versed in, scaling SaaS-based businesses at a certain stage of growth. So the big question that a lot of folks have been asking, and my reason for giving him a call, is why? Sometimes moves like this, as you know, Charlie, can be sort of a sign that an executive is slowly stepping into retirement or scaling back. So Florian's a
young guy. He's a young guy.
He is, yeah. And he assured me, and I believe him, you can sort of hear it in his voice, that he's very much in the game. And really what this move is, we see this sometimes when a company hits a certain stage of growth. The founder and CEO realizes that they may not be the best person in terms of being a chief operating or chief executive, at that stage to sort of bring it to the next step. And it's always been to me, I've always respected that. It's a sign of, integrity and strategic sensibility to sort of hand over your baby.
It shows that the ego isn't too out of control.
Right. And so we've seen similar situations in our world, in the Localogy verse, and even broader. So some of the historical examples are Howard Lerman, what he did recently at Yext, Dennis Crowley at Foursquare, going back a little further. And then like the king of all examples is Larry Page and Sergey Brin at Google. And
right.
All of those moves ended up being very smart for all of those reasons. And then you see the other side of the spectrum, right, where it doesn't
Bill
go
Gates.
as well. Yeah. A lot of people point to Mark Zuckerberg as someone who has too much power, too much control. He doesn't want to give it up, and he's not the right guy at this point. And then you have other, cautionary tales where folks are forced out after bad things happen, and that's where you get into the Travis Kalanick.
Yeah.
Like Adam Newman's of the world.
Right.
So anyway, those are, but of course every situation is unique. There are some commonalities in what's happened here, and according to Florian, he found himself getting sort of wrapped up in spending the majority of his time in sort of managerial stuff, which he actually enjoyed and was good at, right? But it brought him further and further away from the product. And Florian, a lot of people may know, it was a technical co-founder. He's a technical guy. He's a product guy. He was a natural at bringing the company to this stage of growth. We should point out that under his leadership in the last 10 years, the company has achieved essentially 10x growth over that period. So really impressive run so far, but it's really about optimizing from this point. He saw this as a possible inflection and wanted to bring in sort of a career CEO that's good at sort of scaling, a real operations person.
This always raises the point. Is this in anticipation of something, I'm not saying IPO, or exit or what, but those are the questions, right?
Yeah, it could be things that he wasn't at liberty to tell me, and we'll see. And we'll see if that bears out. But I do believe he was genuine in all the things he told me. And as sort of quick background for further context, so Uberall was founded around 2013, I believe. And then Florian and his co-founder, David Federin, were actually co-CEOs, and which we've seen in some other companies like Salesforce, all the way up until 2019, when it was decided that Florian would run with that role in a solo way. And throughout that journey, again, 10x growth over the last decade or so. So at every stage of that growth, I was thinking about this yesterday after I talked to him. At every stage of that growth was new territory for him, and I think he handled it quite well. But now it's a sort of pause. The stakes are high. The next point of inflection, and for the combination of the company, which again is I think an integrity move, but then also for him in terms of his day-to-day role, getting back to product and where he's positioned best. The way he put it is that he's fortunate enough to now be in a position to choose his position on the field. And that's what he's doing.
President is still pretty close to CEO, you know?
Yep. And one thing
I wonder if that's fraught with some potential landmines, because a new CEO wants to be the CEO, right? And they're probably going to be meeting regularly. I mean, I'm wondering if something a little further away would have made more sense, you know?
Yeah, perhaps. And I think that in terms of positions, he was also joking that, like, you know, I'll always be co-founder. No one could take that title away, right?
Exactly, which is both an obvious point, right? But also something that might be an overhang, you know, for the new CEO.
Yep.
I don't know.
And regarding Anthony Foy, so the new CEO, a bit about him. I don't know if I mentioned this, but he was previously at a number of SaaS companies, Qrado, Workshare, and the key point that Florian emphasized was that it was a culture fit. I think that's often ignored in these types of decisions.
Sure.
They interviewed a lot of people, and you see some like really elite people at this level. When you're doing that sort of recruiting, and really a deciding factor for this guy was the cultural fit.
Okay, so there's nothing in his background, like he never took a company public or took a company through an acquisition or a merger. Any of the things that would signify. That would be signifiers, you know.
I didn't notice that, but that would be one signal for like your speculation on, you know, is this the gear up to some other exit or similar? And you know, we can look into that. Yeah,
those are things I would ask about. But that's interesting. I mean, I know Florian a little bit. He's a great guy. Certainly, what's interesting, I recently kind of had with someone else I've been talking to in another part of the world, going through almost exactly the same thing. And in this instance, it's someone who founded a marketplace company, took it as far as she could take it, and then started another company. So it's often this happens for a couple of reasons. One reason can be, obviously, it's time for the business to make this transition. It seems like that's what's happening here. Or it's time for me to make this transition because I want to do something else, you know?
Yeah. Well,
or
some founders
it's time for the business to do something else or whatever. Yes. Or all of the above sometimes, you know?
Some founders are built to be founders, and they're early stage people, and they go from early stage to the next company early stage, and it's that sort of like.
Well, that's what we're seeing with Howard, right? Exactly.
Yeah. You know? Starting from 0 to 10 is where they feel the most.
And 11 is not their territory. They're not 11 people.
Yeah. So
11 to 20 or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a common pattern. May or may not be the case here, but that is a common pattern. But moreover, it's interesting because, you know, we don't usually cover sort of personnel moves, but I thought this was a good sort of reminder of some of the just broader business lessons of, you know, when companies reach this stage. Sometimes this type of thing is a necessary move. So we wanted to shine a little bit of light on it and its reasons, and we're going to keep watching it. And I think some of your questions are good and will be answered in time in terms of what this means, but also just to really watch the progression of the company under Foy's leadership, and then also how Florian flourishes in his new role, if I can use some alliteration there.
Let's see Florian flourish.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. Yeah, that's cool. That's interesting. I certainly wish them well and wish him well, and hope the new guy's able to do what he has to do to take it to the next level. And we'll keep an eye on this one. See if any of my speculation is worth a damn in this case. Mike, why don't you read us out?
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. Thanks, everyone, for listening. This has been This Week in Local. Stay tuned every week for more episodes. You can find the show on all major podcast networks and find out more at Localogy.com. So please subscribe, like, and comment. Your engagement helps others find us. And if you're interested in being a guest or sponsor, you can email us at podcast@Localogy.com. So I'm Mike Boland with Charles Laughlin. Our producer is Dara Sweat. So thanks for listening and see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Localogy's This Week in Local with Mike Boland and Charles Laughlin. Be sure to subscribe for more.